So welcome everyone. I'm also going to go ahead and spotlight myself because I do remember how to do these things. I am Rabbi Michael Birnholz. I am at Temple B'nai Israel in Clearwater, Florida. I do use he, him pronouns. And this, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is a project, a program, an experience that started many years ago with the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 when a group of rabbis, when one of our colleagues, Rabbi Sarah Zober in Reno, Nevada, asked if a bunch of us wanted to help with a virtual Tikkun Leil Shavuot. And we jumped in at that point, and it was really pretty incredible to do that, to realize that rabbis from small congregations using these new technologies, because a lot of us still hadn't done a lot of Zooming at that point, could use this to gather, if we couldn't be together in the same place, that we could gather together in the same time. And a lot of times at small congregations, rabbis are asked to do a lot of different things. And at my congregation, I think I have 3 or 4 congregants on tonight. If I did a 7-session program for 3 congregants, that would be a lot. But by teaming up, we've got over 20 people on, I think, now that have joined us for this Zoom session, which is really incredible from all over the country, from lots of different time zones. And we're able to have this moment. And last week, and I'm pretty sure that Rabbi Reese is on, you got a chance to learn with Rabbi Reese. Tonight, you get a chance to learn from me. And each week, a different rabbi will come forward to teach. And so you're going to get over the course of these 7 weeks of the Omer, 7 different rabbis teaching in their own style, each one of the different days of creation. And it is truly a marvelous experience to be able to have that opportunity. As we are going, I am certainly, and we only have about a half hour, I am open to questions and thoughts and response. This could be very much like Torah study that you do, where as I am teaching, you are asking questions. I hope to ask some questions and get to answers. You are more than welcome to use the chat. You are more than welcome to use the raised hand function. You're more than welcome to call out. I can't have everybody's screen on at the same time. So if you wave your hand, I probably can't see you, but that's some other ways of certainly getting my attention. I will also tell you if you want me to talk for half an hour, I can do that. I joke with my congregation that I'm paid by the word. I really don't have that actually in my contract, but I can teach for half an hour. It's kind of either somewhere between a huge flaw or a superpower. It's one of the two. So it is wonderful that you are joining me for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and remove the spotlight. Please, again, feel free to use the chat to put in where you're joining us from. And I've now seen everything from Texas to Florida to New York to Maine, all over our lovely country. And I am going to share our text with us for tonight. As I do this, I just need a second to rearrange my screen into all sorts of different formats and proper ways. And I am going to move that out of my way. And I'm going to make sure I have the chat open also. So if somebody has a question, I can see it. And that's all I should need ready to go. So tonight, we are and are you all able to see the text? Okay. And I will put once again, giving you the option to see the PDF as a shared file from my Google Drive, which you should be able to access so you can have it. So the first place I want to start is we are observing the counting of the Omer. And so this is really an incredible, powerful ritual to mark time and space as the people of Israel wandered from Egypt, from Mitzrayim, a stuck and narrow place. They got through the sea, and they had 50 days to walk to go from slavery and bondage to arriving at Mount Sinai, free people, ready to receive Torah. We have that same opportunity. We are not coming from the same Egypt they are, but we all have our own stuck and narrow places. It might be individually, it might be as a family, it might be as a congregation or a community, certainly as a world. And what are we going to do over these 50 days as we go through this journey to get unstuck, to open ourselves up, to be truly ready for the giving of Torah at Mount Sinai that we will observe in 40 days when we arrive at Mount Sinai and the observance of Shavuot. So I am now prepared to fulfill the positive mitzvah of the counting of the Omer, just as is written in the Torah. And from the day on which you bring the sheaf of the wave offering, the day after the day of rest, you shall count off 7 weeks. They must be complete until the day after the seventh week. You should count 50 days. And the blessing for the count, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Praise are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctifies us through mitzvot and commands us to count the Omer. And today, as the sun has set in Florida, it is the 10th day, which is 1 week and 3 days in the Omer. I'm going to make the text a little bit bigger. I hope that is helpful to you all. And one of the ways that you can do the count, and there is resource after resource, there is a Jewish mystical practice of connecting midot. And so the midah of today, and this is coming from a book called Counting the Days by Leah Gavrieli. That looks kind of like that. I can put that information in the chat. Is called Tiferet Shebegvura, which is beauty within strength. And she includes this beautiful quote from Maya Angelou. It is time for parents to teach young people early on that in diversity there is beauty and there is strength. And so she's getting to this place where what does it mean to have tiferet, which can be glory or beauty, and balance it with gevurah, which has to do strength. And if we get a chance at the end, I will try to give you a link to the playlist of last year's program and count, because we did go through these different midot, which was a wonderful opportunity. And so she writes that Tiferet describes beauty and balance. Tiferet can be the physical balance of beauty, strength, and discipline, an elegant solution to a puzzle, or a particularly striking work of art. Tiferet is mostly in the eye and the heart of one seeking it. The fine balance of Tiferet Shebegvura is keeping true to your beliefs while taking care that others are also heard and respected. So I'm curious, before we even look at the second day of creation, which we'll come back to this, I was quite intrigued to see how looking at some of the commentary on the second day of creation talked very much about that balance of strength and that beauty, and even that Maya Angelou quote about diversity. I'm curious if anyone has an impression about those, about either her quote or the comment that keeping true to your beliefs while taking care that others also are heard or respected. Any impressions? Does that sound like something either that you really like and you try to practice, or that you want to try to cultivate? Quiet group. No, go ahead.
Well, Rabbi, it just seems like a given. I mean, that you want to be true to your beliefs, and also by respecting others, expecting respect, and needing that as a way to live.
Mm-hmm. That to you, that sounds like a given, and just that's a normal thing to do.
Mhm.
Ruth?
Well, first of all, I love Maya Angelou, and I've always practiced. I love diversity. I grew up in a very small town that was all Polish people. Everybody spoke Polish. The policemen, the firemen, the people in retail stores and stuff. And when I went into high school, I went into a different city, and there was all these different, you know, nationalities and stuff. And I was so excited to meet all these different people. and learn about them. And I've always been like that.
And it's, as we talk about diversity and differentiation, which is going to come up in the second day of creation, that's really kind of vital, because there's also that sense of when you walk into a place and there is so much diversity, and then there are those other places where everything is homogeneous, and yet you have to, if you really search down a little bit of a level and you look with some subtlety and some discernment, you see that there's a lot more diversity than you would ever realize. I think it's interesting that I'd say that, and when we started, there were at least half a dozen Doug cones on the screen, and that over time it diversified itself a little bit. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but again, if somebody has a thought for the chat or would like to raise your hand, please feel free. Now, I wanted to include day 1 and day 2 because I think, again, it's in seeing day 1 and then seeing day 2 in relationship to day 1 that it makes the impression. So for day 1, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. This is what you studied with Rabbi Reese last week. When God began creating the creation of the heaven and earth being unformed and void with the darkness over the surface of the deep, and there was a deep wind and a wind from God sweeping over the waters. God said, Vayihi or, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good. Okay? Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. So we get that response of ki tov, which is going to become vital in just a moment. Vayikra Elohim la'or yom. God calls that the light day, and the darkness becomes night. There was evening, there was day, there was morning, day 1. So we are ready for, or is everyone ready for day 2? Don't blink, it's fast. Okay, so notice you've got, here is day 1, and day 2 is just this short. It's a very short description, which is kind of phenomenal too. So, Vayomer Elohim vayehi rakia betoch hamayim. God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the water that may separate water from water. So everything is water, and God creates a separation between one set of waters and the other set of waters. Vayas Elohim et harakia, vayavdel bein hamayim asher mitachat l'rakia uvein hashamayim asher me'al l'rakia vayihi chen. So God makes an expanse. God separates the waters separates the waters which are below from the waters which are above. Okay? And God, remember, light, night and day, light and darkness. Here we get that that you have an expanse that's called Shemayim. Okay? And so you got the waters above the Shemayim and the waters below the Shemayim. There was evening, there was morning, not day 2, but a second day. And so we start getting, you have day 1, but this is the second day. Now we're starting a cycle. We're starting something. So just curious with folks, as you see this, is there anything that catches your attention or that you find kind of remarkable in this?
Well, if I could jump in, when I first thought about this, of separating the water, I thought, well, we're going to separate the water by land. So I guess land is not part of this, correct?
Nope, that's coming up.
So if we are, I guess maybe I'm too scientific, but if I'm separating levels of water, is it fresh versus salt? But that could mix together. So I'm trying to figure out what this is.
Good. That is a wonderful thing. We'll get a little bit of some of the commentary on that. One of the things I love in Judaism is, Bobby, I think I just saw you unmute. If you have something to say, I'll get you in just a second. A lot of our rabbinic sages are astronomers. They are fascinated by how the stuff out there works and how to understand and explain the order of out there. Go ahead, Bobby.
Thank you. It's Babby, and that's
Oh, sorry,
okay.
Babby.
No, that's all right. I'm called all kinds of names. Um, and I was going to say to Ken, it it's saying water, but and it was separating water below and water above the expanse. So we're making water and sky. Sky, I guess, is made of water in some way. So it's not salt water and fresh water, it's up and down.
So there's some kind of layering going on. Does anyone notice anything missing?
Well, the land.
Well, we don't have land yet. Hindsight is 2020 and all that. Go ahead. I'm assuming Douglas.
Hi, Michael. I was going to say something different, but when you went to something different, I stopped. I was going to say that day two, going back to the quote you started with, day two creates diversity. At least in
Right.
my reading, what you're showing is that day two took a singular entity, and just like cells of a zygote split and create, it began to separate and split also and created two separate beings from that first uniform cell. And I'm not sure what you're getting at with what's missing. I would think of a horizon, but I'm curious what you're going to say. But I just wanted to mention that day two itself, what it created was besides the above and the below, but it created diversity, applied diversity.
So we're getting some diversity. We're getting that differentiation. Barbara says, seems like it relates to the creation of boundaries, which is consistent with the Midota, Tiferet, and Gevurah, that some of that is that those creation and feeling where those boundaries are. Temi or Temi?
I don't see Temi, thank you. I don't see where it says Kitov.
It doesn't. It doesn't say good. And that's a great, because every other day of creation, day 3 has it twice, doesn't say Kitov. And so there is some question of why that would be. And then it led me to commentaries. So, are you ready for a few answers?
Yeah.
Now, one of the other things that I will often say is the more answers you get, the more you can, A, be sure that no one really knows what the answer is, and B, the more opportunities you have to look at different aspects of it. Okay? So we have the Midrash. So this is Midrash Rabbah. Understands that the word Shemaim, so this was getting back to Ken trying to figure out what these different layers are. So what is Shemaim? Understands the word as a combination of Aish and fire, Aish, which is fire, and Maim, which is water, the sun and rain clouds. Were the rain clouds to extinguish the sun and the sun to evaporate the rain clouds, the world would perish. Therefore, God works a daily miracle. Fire and water agree to coexist peacefully, so the world can endure. Right? Goes back to our diversity piece. And how do we make space for each other? This division of these layers of water allows the sun and fire and water to find balance and coexistence with each other. Another midrash links the idea to a passage in our prayers. I'm curious if anyone recognizes this. May you establish peace in the heavens and grant that kind of peace to us and all Israel. Does anyone recognize that? Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. God who makes peace, shalom bimromav, in those high heavens, bring that peace to us and to all Israel. And so here you get a play on that. When we talk about God making peace in the high heavens, it's teaching fire and water to get along. And it's an interesting comment when we think about Maya Angelou, where it's parents teaching their children that diversity creates both beauty and strength, that God is showing us to do that through creation by balancing fire and water. And as we say that word Shemaim, it's a balance of fire and water. We pray for the miracle, both for individuals and nations. With power to harm each other, we'll learn to get along in peace, even as fire and water do in the heavens. Do you all like that one? I'm only struck because it's Oseh Shalom Bimromav. It's not Shemayim there. And so do I like that one? I love the concept, but do I like the proof text? Gets all kinds of interesting. Okay. Now here's and this is all by the way, is all from Eitz Chaim, the conservative Torah commentary. On the second day, we do miss the formula, and God saw that it was good. The sages explain that this is due to the act of separation on that day, which may be necessary, but is never wholly good. Or because the process of separating the waters would not be concluded on the third day, and one does not recite a blessing over an incomplete project. So one option is that God's having to do some separation here, and we don't want to call that good. If you have to break things up and make them less than the sum of their parts, that's not going to get praised. That's one option. The other option that is here is the second day isn't a full thing. A lot of you were talking about the separation of the earth and dry land, and there's a lot more to do. And so this is not complete. Therefore, it's not going to get a praise of this is good. And in fact, the formula occurs twice on the third day. This is the source of tradition that Tuesday, which is the third day, is the day for weddings and important occasions, which is one of those lovely little pieces that we see. And that idea of how do you to build in, and again, here we are bringing it back to the Omer a little bit. Here we're in the second week of the Omer. We've just been able to start saying this is 1 week in the Omer. We're really just getting started. You might have started a habit. We've just started something. In fact, both Ruth and Renee were at our congregation today. Ruth came in to count the Omer. We have stations set up so somebody can come in and count the Omer each day and acknowledge it for our congregation. Well, we got a few people right at the beginning because that's exciting, it's new. Well, now we're into the second week. How do we make sure people keep going to be able to keep this process going? It's just started. We had day one, now we have the second day. How do we keep it flowing and keep those habits moving forward? Any thoughts on that? Do you like either of those ideas?
Well,
Like Rashi.
oh, go ahead, you first. Nope, oh, she turned herself off. So I want to back us up a second to fire and water. Okay. And initially, I have difficulty conceiving water catching on fire. However, to get us back to the Passover story and the 10 plagues, I always thought hail in terms of what we know as hail, ice coming down from the heavens. But what's interesting is we have little puppets that our grandkids use for the 10 plagues. And hail is depicted with fire coming out of the top of the hail. And also interestingly, in several movies and pieces of artwork, the hail gets depicted as fire and it's flaming and comes down and causes fire, as opposed to just coming down as ice and causing destruction.
Although
I found that very interesting.
So there's those are some of the different kinds of comments you get and descriptions of the hail, the plague of hail. Although if you have been hit by hail or had your car or your house hit by hail, it does a lot of breaking up. And so even ice, but we also know that fire and water don't mix very well. What happens if you spritz water on a fire? Either the water is going to evaporate or the fire is going to go out. Sometimes both at the same time. So that's a powerful kind of separation of those two things don't exist very well together. Other comments, Tammy? You have to yeah.
I was just saying that of the commentators, I like Rashi's idea that it's not finished yet. So there wasn't going to be it's good. First, you got to finish. And then it's sort of like, first you have to light a candle and then you say your blessing. You got to finish and then say. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me.
And that, I mean, you also see a lot of that concept in Judaism that we acknowledge the destruction of the Second Temple, that we don't complete things in our midst because we know we still want to work on them. We'll have people who will talk about us being human beings, not human doings, because we're in that process of being perfected quite often as well. But and that idea of, even if you don't complete, sometimes you leave something undone and you're not sure of the process, and you leave it the next day. There was a beautiful podcast, I think it was Hidden Brain, but it might have been Radio Lab, on memory, that there was a guy who was learning a particular set of chords on his guitar, and he couldn't get them to come out right. And he finally decided to sleep on it. He woke up the next morning and played them perfectly. And did he learn it in his sleep? And he was actually a researcher of dreams and sleep. And he concluded that no, what had happened is, as he was practicing, it got deeper in his brain. And when he went to sleep, the surface level stuff got cleared out. And because he had been practicing, it brought the deeper stuff out first thing in the morning. Really kind of extraordinary here. And what a beautiful teaching that sometimes on day 2 of a process, you don't have to finish, you don't do it to completion, you do a little bit of it and you leave it to the next day, because sometimes you've got to keep the work going to see what the incomplete will do for you. I'm going to keep going a little bit because I want to get to this next piece. We see it, this is from the Stone Chumash, which is coming from the Art Scroll world. The heavens have been created the first day, but they were in a state of flux. On the second day, God commands, let there be a firmament. They solidified, creating a division between the waters above and the waters below. The Rashi was very similar to the translation of the Rashi here was very similar to the Rashi we just saw. So I went with now Ramban. So Rashi is 10th century. Ramban is 13th century. My rabbinic colleagues, or 10th or 11th. I lived on Rachov Ramban.
I think you're right. I think Rashi's 11th and Nachmani's is 13, but it's all, what's 100 years between friends?
That's true. So according to Ramban, and I love this, however, the separation mentioned in these verses is between the holy spiritual, extraterrestrial aspects of creation and the tangible world that is within the province of human, which include the furthest reaches of the solar system. He states, do not expect me to write anything about the second day of creation, since scripture itself did not elaborate it. Remember how short the second day of creation was? God didn't talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. And what's beyond the Shemayim, I don't have to talk about it, except the verses in their literal sense do not require explanation. Those who understand are forbidden to reveal it, and for those of us who do not understand it, it is forbidden to speculate on the unknown. So it's either really clever and really beautiful, or it's a total dodge by Ramban, and it's pretty amazing. It's also kind of one of those things of, you know what, sometimes just keep it simple, and if you don't see an explanation, it's okay to let it be. Okay? One last piece, and this is one of those beautiful pieces. This is only day regarding which the Torah does not say it was good. And again, here's a little bit of Rashi. We saw that above. Midrash has a different reason. The waters were divided on this day, symbolizing strife, which occurs when the bonds that unite people are broken. Schisms and dispute cannot be good. And Rasei Lila points out that strife began on the second day. So that's why the psalm sung by the Levites during the Monday temple service was one composed by Korach, the instigator of strife against Moses and Aaron?
Well, the sons of Korah, who actually didn't take part in the strife,
Yeah,
but were fully bearing witness to it.
got it. Thank you. So, um, so here again, it's that same kind of thing. You've got division on the second day. You've got strife on the second day. We're going to have these things. They're going to exist in creation, but we're not going to call it good. Other comments?
Um, would it be, how about thinking that we're not going to call it good, but it was necessary? And we have a
Yes.
lot of situations that are like that.
And I would also say, going back to the Maya Angelou, some of it is just recognizing the diversity, seeing that there is differentiation, seeing that there's diversity before you can start making order out of it. If we remember back to that quote where we talked about Tiferet and Begavurah, that sense of beauty and strength that go together, sometimes it's that seeing the beauty of something before you respond. How do you find yourself and settle yourself into your space, into your opinion, into your way of listening, of moving through the world, and then being able to turn and listen and hear other people? So we are at our time of 8:35. I do want to go ahead and wrap up. Isn't it great? I don't have to finish this class. It's like the second day of creation. You don't even have to tell me if it's good or not. You just have to feel it as we separate and go our separate ways.
Oh, let's go with Kitov anyway. Yeah.
So thank you all for joining. I hope I gave you a little bit of food for thought and raise some questions as we talk about Shemayim, as we look at differentiation, as we think about looking for beauty and strength and balance in our world, and as we go through this process of marking these different days of the Omer, which is truly, truly incredible. Again, you will be gathering next week at the for week number 3 and day number 3. Please feel free to read the third day of creation, and also be on the lookout. We are putting together our small congregation rabbis teaming up for a Tikkun Leil Shavuot. And so through the night, starting at 8 p.m. and going all through the night and into the morning, every hour there will be somewhere between 1 and 3 classes taught by different, or 4 classes taught by different rabbis, just like this, all over the country. It really is a phenomenal process. One of the things I did when we did the first one was I looked at the list from that Tikkun Leil Shavuot, and I said to my congregation, what of these topics sound interesting to you? And I was able to reach out with colleagues and say, would you teach that class for my congregation? So even if we didn't have the opportunity to do it on Tikkun Leil Shavuot, we were able to go back and then reconnect with each other. And especially with us in small congregations, if you're in a place that's more isolated, or your rabbi does a lot of the teaching, it open us up so many different avenues for again, that strength through diversity and hearing different styles, and then supporting each other, because there are times where we are either sick, on vacation, or away. And Rabbi Cohn, I think you're in California, I heard? No.
New York. I was in California years ago. You're right.
Got it. Okay. And by the way, we don't know how you appeared on half of the Zoom screens here. We like that trick. You'll have to tell us.
Yeah, I think that we sent to the congregation my registration link until they all became me. So it's going
No,
to
I had
happen.
members, I had folks of my congregation that did too. So who knows? It's Zoom.
Did you use
But,
that flyer?
Yes, they should have been our link, but if it was your flyer, then maybe that's why. Who knows? So to either of my rabbinic colleagues that are with us tonight, are any other announcements, comments, anything you want to add?
Wonderfully done.
Well,
And
I
and absolutely well done, Michael. And I want to say it brings new meaning to Osei Shalom, doesn't it? That's a kind of strength and diversity in itself, and maybe something new we can think about when we hear it.
Amen. So everyone have a wonderful evening. Take care and enjoy the class next week and each class. And hopefully we'll connect again either in future classes or in the Tikkun Leil Shavuot. Thank you all.
Good night.